1977 Topps. This set has 660 cards, going from number 1, the 1976 batting champs, to number 660, Willie Horton. Let's jump right into the top 25. Number 25 is Nolan Ryan's record breaker card, celebrating his record for the most 300 strikeout seasons. That for a while seemed like it was going to become a super commonplace thing, but with the drop off in innings pitched in baseball today, 300 strikeouts has become basically non-existent. Now, let's talk a little bit about the pricing down at the bottom. I've used PSA's auction prices realized page in order to get accurate pricing based on real auction sales of these cards recently. And I've used the PSA 9 pricing to rank the top 25 cards. The reason why I use 9 and not 10 is that many of the cards don't exist in PSA 10 or exist in very few copies that rarely sell, whereas there are plenty of 9s for all of the cards. So you get a much fairer sense of how they're valued in the marketplace as opposed to simply being scarce and carrying high values. You'll note that the PSA 10 price here, $6,064, is in yellow. Anytime you see a yellow number, it means that there aren't very many sales, and that number should be taken with a grain of salt because it's partially based on the rarity of the card. The white numbers, like you see for the $106 in PSA 9 and the $38 in PSA 8, are based on a large number of sales. In fact, I set a minimum of 100 sales. And so those are pretty good, fair market numbers where there's an adequate supply for the demand for those cards. Coming in at number 24, the great Rod Carew. In 1977, Topps put the All-Star designation on any card for a player who was in the 1976 All-Star game, as opposed to giving them their own separate All-Star card like they did in later years. You can see here the PSA 10 price, $1,416, is in white, which means that that's actually based on a pretty significant number of sales. That's the average of recent sales at the time of recording this video. Number 23, Hall of Famer Dave Winfield. This is pretty early in his career. This is just his 4th Topps card when he was still with the Padres. The pricing is kind of crazy. You can see that there haven't been very many PSA 10 sales, again, because it's in yellow. Most recent one going for $4,670. That's just a really, really hard to find card. Really gone for an incredible premium. Great player, but that's a hefty price. Number 22, strikeout leaders card for the 1976 season. This is a highly desirable card because it's got 2 of the most collectible pitchers of all time on there with both Nolan Ryan and Tom Seaver. Amazing card and goes for a pretty penny. The PSA 10, there are actually 20 copies of this card graded in a PSA 10, and they do sell from time to time. Average recent price of $2,238, still $120 on a PSA 9 card. Pretty amazing, fantastic card. Number 21, Brooks Robinson of the Orioles. Fantastic player, going for $121 in the PSA 9. Number 20, Steve Garvey. Now, this is an interesting case. There are only 5 PSA 10 grades that have ever been given out for this card, and as a result, the pricing is incredible. If you look at his PSA 10 card, the most recent time it sold for well over $9,000. That is one of the highest numbers we're going to see on this entire countdown. But it is driven mostly by scarcity. Garvey is far from the most popular player in the set at 25, as you'll see, but that card is just almost impossible to get in a PSA 10. A note on the care of your cards. If you have that Steve Garvey card and you want to keep it in good condition, definitely do not keep it in your pants. Number 19, rookie outfielders. And this card is popular due to the presence of Jack Clark primarily, but also Lee Mazzilli and Rupert Jones there on the top right. Not a bad player either. Had a relatively short career, but quite productive. Nice card. We're going to see a couple more examples on this countdown of the multiplayer rookie cards like this one. Number 18, Joe Morgan. It's hard to imagine a player at a higher peak than Morgan was at this moment. He was coming off back-to-back MVP awards in 1975 and 1976, where he was also the best player in the game. In other words, not only did he win the MVP easily both years, but if you go back and look at his wins above replacement, which wasn't a stat back then, he led all of Major League Baseball both years. Kind of amazing. Awesome. The Topps gave him card number 100 for basically a 100% player. And oh, by the way, his team won the World Series each of those 2 years as well. Not bad, Joe. Number 17, Jim Hunter. This is another unusual card as there are only 4 PSA 10 examples in existence. That's why it's going to run you $3,000 for a piece of Catfish. Number 16, Bruce Sutter. Now, compared to Catfish Hunter, there are 36 PSA 10 grades for this card, and they do actually sell from time to time. And so that $2,115 number actually is an average of recent sales, of which there have been a reasonable number. Number 15, Carl Yastrzemski. Just a quick shout out to the design of this card. I love the design of the 1977 Topps set. And look at how beautiful the red Red Sox name and the green Carl Yastrzemski name match the red on his cap and the green on the field. Just a beautiful card. I love it. $180 in PSA 9 for Carl. Number 14, we're sticking with the Red Sox and moving from Carl to Carlton. Carlton Fisk in this case. A wonderful action shot, as so many catcher cards are, with a young Willie Randolph sliding in. I think this card really captures what's special about baseball cards. Can you imagine being a young fan and getting this card in a pack in 1977? What an incredible photo, full color, just amazing. I just can really imagine what it must have been like to be a kid. How awesome it was to pull cards like this as a youngster. Number 13, Jim Palmer. Here's another player at the height of his powers. Palmer was coming off his 3rd Cy Young in 4 years at this point. Beautiful card. I love the all-orange top, something that wasn't seen for many years other than in spring training until they started doing all the various uniform combinations over the last few years. Number 12, Mike Schmidt. Now check out the pricing here. There are 38 PSA 10s on file with PSA, and they trade relatively often, and that card's going for almost $4,000 just in recent average sales. That is quite the price tag. Number 11, Johnny Bench. If you thought the Schmidt was expensive, well, Bench breaks the $200 point for the PSA 9 card. Now that PSA 10 number is a really big number, but there are only 21 examples of the card and they don't trade very often. So don't put too much stock in that number, but keep an eye on the prices, be it into the top 10, because they are about to get out of control. Okay, before we get into the top 10, here are the 10 honorable mentions. These are the next 10 cards that are just past the 25 that we're seeing on the list here. No surprises, all Hall of Famers with the exception of Fred Lynn. This was his 3rd Topps card, not far removed from his Rookie of the Year MVP campaign in 1975. Great group of players here. All right, let's break into the top 10. First up at number 10 is Rookie Catchers. Now, if you're not familiar with this card, you'll probably be surprised to find out that it is Dale Murphy's rookie card. Unless you happen to know, most people are not aware that he started off as a catcher. And that price, $3,278, there are 70 PSA 10s of this card, and they trade a lot, and that is a real price. That is what it's going to cost you to get one of these in a PSA 10. So we are in the big leagues now, no pun intended. Who am I kidding? Pun intended. Number 9, the legendary Reggie Jackson. The PSA 10 has a population of 17, and boy is it pricey. $7,800 to get yourself one of those. Wow. Number 8 is Mark the Bird Fidrych. And I just love that this card has made it so high onto this list. As you can imagine, the 7 guys that are ahead of Fidrych are all extremely talented ball players with very notable careers. Fidrych, of course, had a very short career due to arm injuries that really ruined him very early on. And he doesn't have very many cards at all because his career was short. And this one's hard to find in PSA 10 and will still run you a few $100 in a PSA 9. I love that collectors flock to this one. I would say no bird pun intended there with use of the word flock, but I think you know by now that I definitely meant it. Number 7, rookie outfielders featuring the Hawk, Andre Dawson. Dawson has a standalone card with the Topps All-Star Rookie designation in the 1978 set, but this is his true rookie card, along with Gene Richards, who had a pretty darn good career, and Danny Walling, who had a long and productive career, as well as John Scott. There are 59 PSA 10s of this card, and so that $3,800 price you're seeing really represents a fair market price for the PSA 10. Pricey card for a fantastic player. Number 6, Pete Rose. Very popular with collectors. The PSA 9 is going to run you almost $350. That's a little bit more affordable than the PSA 10, which will run you more than $5,500. Wow. Well, we're in the top 5 now, starting off with Robin Yount. This is just Yount's third Topps card, and it's one of the reasons why it carries such a high premium. Well, that and he's a fantastic Hall of Fame player. There are only 11 copies of his card in a PSA 10, and those don't trade very often, but you'll still spend well over $300 to get a PSA 9 copy. At number 4, speaking of great Hall of Fame players who have their third ever Topps card, can I introduce you to Mr. George Brett? He finally breaks the $350 barrier for the PSA 9. Number 3, we've seen him once already on this countdown. It's Tom Seaver. This card has been graded in PSA 10 only 8 times. As a result, look at that crazy price tag. The last time one of them sold, it was $9,000. Unbelievable. Number 2 is Yankee captain Thurman Munson. And this is a really interesting example of how the PSA populations factor in. His PSA 10 card, there are only 4 copies ever. But it's been forever since one of them sold. The last time it sold, it was for $2,700. As a result, though, it's his PSA 9 card that's being driven up in value. Those are going for $900 and selling quite a bit more often because basically that's the highest grade card that's available. Kind of crazy, but that's how it works when you start getting into these really rare cards. Here we are at number 1. You may have guessed it is Nolan Ryan. And boy, oh boy, is this an expensive card. There are only 21 PSA 10s of this. They sell very rarely. The last time one of them sold, it went for over $14,000. That is the most expensive sale of a 1977 Topps card. And as you can see, the PSA 9 cards go for quite a pretty penny. Similar to the Thurman Munson, it's really only PSA 9s that are accessible to those who would want to buy them. So you're going to have to shell out $1,500 to get a PSA 9 copy. Anyway, there you have it. I love this set. Hope you enjoyed watching. Have a great rest of your day and see you soon.